Hi, my name is Dana Kletke, and I'm the co-executive director of Mentoring Artists for Women's Art. I'm also a visual artist. I work in drawing and mixed media. And we are located here I'm located here in Winnipeg on Treaty 1 territory on the original lands, the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, and Dene peoples, and the Dakota peoples, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past and the present, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. And I'm here with Jan Jenkins, and I'm excited to talk to you about your work in the exhibition Into the Wind.
Thank you, Dana. I'm excited to be here as well. I'm thrilled that Manitoba Art Network chose this exhibit for their touring program, as well as for their online gallery as part of their Stay Safe at Home Manitoba free online gallery and workshops. You can see my Into the Wind exhibition at artgallery.manitobaartnetworks.ca. I'm originally from Montreal and moved to Alberta, Calgary, and spent 35 years there. And then 13 years ago, I moved to Manitoba and decided that I needed to focus on my artwork. And it's just been such a pleasure being here, connecting with so many wonderful Manitoba artists and art organizations such as Manitoba Art Networks and MAWA, who help support artists in their trying to move their careers forward. So that's great.
Thank you. So, speaking about not always living in Manitoba, I'm wondering how the prairie landscape has influenced your work.
I love the prairie landscape with the open skies and the grand vistas. I lived for a while in BC and amongst all those mountains, and I've actually, when I was younger, been to South Africa. My father was from there, and so I love the prairies because, wherever you look, there's just this beauty, and it doesn't matter whether you're looking up at the sky or down at the ground. It's just a gorgeous place to be.
I agree. Yeah, I do a
As
lot
long
of driving.
as long
What's
as you
that?
can, I said, as long as you can ignore the mosquitoes, right?
Yeah, and a bit of the cold weather sometimes, but I do a lot of driving, and I just every time I drive through the prairies and the fields, it's just yeah, there's a sense of openness that I really appreciate as well.
Hmm.
And the sky, there's nothing like the sky in the prairies.
That's right.
So in your exhibition, you talk a lot about patterns, and you have a lot of patterns, and so this repetition is really important. And I'm wondering if you could talk about the significance.
I think for myself, I've always been attracted to patterning, textile patterning, Damascus tile patterning, anything like that. And I think more than anything, to me, it's just like music where you have a repetition or a series of things that repeat over and over, and it just feels like a melody and a sense of comfort to me. And I find repeating patterning just very meditative as part of my creation process, and trying to bring maybe some order out of chaos. I'm not one that deals well with chaos, so it's my way of kind of controlling the chaos, I think. Yeah.
Has your patterning become more evident during the time of COVID?
Uh, yes, at first it was very hard to focus on my art. I felt a little fractured and scattered. But as time wore on, I got back into some projects that I hadn't completed, and that kind of laid the foundation for me spinning off and doing some more artwork. And yes, repeat patterning. One of the neat things is that through the mentorship program that I was delightful to participate in through Manitoba Art Network, sponsored by MAWA as well in partnership. One of my challenges that I made for myself was not only to have repeat patterns in my artwork, but also to have a pattern that would repeat itself horizontally and vertically. And if you don't mind me showing you an example, for example, this is just the one. And then if you look, I folded the page over horizontally, and you can see at the orange line how it repeats. And then
Right.
you can see, well, this is the other way. You can see how it repeats that way as well. So that was the initial concept and inception of the Into the Wind exhibition, was to come up with something that represented that poem based on my recurring dream of flying up off the ground and over new vistas. And so that was so much fun to just engage the brain and get right into that type of creativity. So
I would also think it's quite technical then to try to make sure all the lines match so it's seamless.
it is. And I mean, thank goodness for the internet and Google, because I was able to go online and research, the methodology of doing repeat pattern making. And the other thing I like my patterns to have is some symbolism. So, for example, if I'm incorporating a dragonfly into my artwork, it has a certain symbolism to it, and there are universal legends and stories and symbols about certain things like daisies or dragonflies, so or leaves.
I did notice the repeating pattern of the dragonfly, the leaf, and also it looked like a seed pod. It was a bit more abstract, but it also could almost be a sun in a way. And I was wondering what the significance was in those specific images. And then some of them sometimes become buried within pattern, and then they kind of, you have to really look at them for them to kind of come out. So it's interesting, this play between background foreground that you have.
Yes, the other challenge that I had given myself is to see how I could layer the foreground and the background using printmaking linocut techniques as well. And so breaking those elements apart. One technique you have is called drawing behind. And so whenever you do whenever I start a drawing, I start with the thing that's closest to me, and then I work behind backwards. Now, obviously, if you're doing it in pencil, you can apply the background first and work forward. And then when you pen it in, you do it the opposite way, right? But so the symbolism to me is, I'm a bit of a cautious person. And I'm actually not all that good a traveler, or I have to prepare myself for new adventures. And so I think that dream symbolizes letting go of those uncertainties and the fears, and just taking off and exploring new things in life. It could be as much as going to a new place, or a new art technique. And so I think that dream and what I incorporated into it is a symbol of just letting the wind take you, and letting your experiences take you to new places. And yeah, so that's it. And of course, seeds, they're signs of fertility. Wherever they blow and land, new life grows. So yeah, so that was part of the symbolism.
And that really, I think, comes across in your work, and how wonderful that it also gives you the courage to do more and expand your practice.
Yes, because I tend to be a bit of a perfectionist. So one of the things that Zen doodling and Zen Tangle did for me was it freed me from being very concise in my expectations. I know it looks like very precise, intricate work, but it comes intuitively. I don't typically pre-plan my initial design. It's usually very intuitive. And then from there, I can incorporate the symbolism and the patterning that I want to have convey a message in my artwork. Yeah.
Hmm. Can you tell me a little bit more about Zen doodling? I'm not sure I even know, or the Zen drawing, exactly what that means.
There is a program that how I got inspired with this when I was a kid. I used to love drawing on. I used to love cartoon and drawings that had all these different intricate details. And when I moved to Manitoba, a friend of mine had taken a Zentangle session, and I saw what she had produced, and I went, "Oh my! Now I know what to do with my pen and ink."
Hmm.
Instead of realism, I wanted to branch out into this artwork that was kind of representative of my longtime admiration for exotic patterning and textiles and that type of thing. And so I actually took a session and researched online. Like I said, thank goodness for online these days. I researched Zen doodling and that. And what it is you're basically making different, I guess, sections on a page with a random type of line. And then in each of those sections, you are filling in with a different pattern. Now, I've taken it one step further in that I've kind of blended a little bit of the realism in with the patterning. And you know, to say I'm influenced by any particular artist, I'd have to say William Morris, for example, with his wallpaper designs, and as I mentioned before, the beautiful Damascus tile work that you see created by ceramic artists, and the gorgeous textile patterning and the batik work that you see produced for clothing as well.
And I see in your work that you have moved into different mediums. So it's you are working with batik. And so how does that how is that different than the lino cut? And how do you choose what medium to use? And you also use pen and ink and other acrylics, I think.
Yes, I love exploring different mediums, and I find they have different effects. For example, the batik is very atmospheric, and so you tend to have a lot more focus on the atmosphere that the objects are in. The same with doing your plexiglass, inking a plexiglass plate and playing around with that. And then the linocut is more it's more precise, and you get a very strong, definite, confident image. And so I like how each medium lends itself to providing a different personality for the artist and for the artwork. And so what Into the Wind also did, my exhibition also explored how these different mediums impact the the similar design in looking at how you use color, how you use line, what surface you're working on, what products you're using to make your mark making. So
That's very interesting.
the
Um, with the lino cut, do you have a studio at home? Like, how do you do all your printmaking at home, or do you go to a studio to do that work? Or
I'm very fortunate in that we live in a tiny house, and the master bedroom was converted into the studio for myself. So that was, my husband must love me quite a bit to have agreed to that. So actually, if you don't mind, I'll turn the camera and you can kind of see
oh, wonderful! Wow, we're sitting in your studio.
sitting in my studio. And over here, I oops, showed you the wrong way. I was very fortunate that when I moved here, I decided that I would get a print press for myself. So I have a small print press. I like to focus on smaller artworks for smaller spaces simply because we live in a small home. I have no place to store large pieces of art. And so I do limit myself in the size of work that I do, which again, part of the exhibition was how do I create an image or artworks that are broader than just what I am limited to creating in my studio. And again, the repeating pattern and some of the way that the artwork in the exhibit is displayed indicates to you how a repeating pattern can be displayed on a larger wall through repetition that continues throughout the artwork. Yeah.
That's really interesting. And it's wonderful that you're able to do that at home, and you have, your studio at home, and in your, I noticed in the on the website there is a work that says wallpaper swatch, and so I was quite curious about that particular one and how you would envision that in a space. Like, would you create enough of that wallpaper that someone could actually cover the wall?
Yes, actually, if you look right behind me, that's a swatch of the wallpaper right there. And part of the exhibit does include some wallpaper that can be displayed. And so, yes, the exhibition does include wallpaper. And it was based off of, for example, a more simplistic design such as this. And then what I did was I repeated it like this digitally, and then sent it to a company that produces wallpaper, and that's Spoonflower actually in the States. So so that was fun, and I said to my husband, "Gee, maybe I should do that for our dining room. Maybe I should make a different design, and we can repaper our dining room." So
Wow. So you've actually made wallpaper.
yes, I
That's
have.
amazing.
And with the repeating design, one of the things that I wanted to get into was uh, print on demand product. Just it's a wonderful way for artists to augment their business and maybe get a bit more income out of their artwork. And part of the exhibit includes scarves, and these thin, airy scarves represent how fragile um, we are, and everything in nature, and how beautiful and floaty and atmospheric they are. So that was one of the things I did as well, was I created scarves for part of the
Beautiful.
exhibition. So mhm.
Very versatile.
It, I'm exploring things, and it's wonderful how it keeps you mentally engaged, and it's actually forcing me to embrace the digital world. Artists tend to be the type that might prefer just sticking to what they can do manually on their table because that's what we love doing. We love working with our hands. And so by doing this, it's helping me embrace the digital world and that type of thing. So
Wow. That's amazing. I still struggle with the digital world, so I'm on my learning path. Just looking at the time quick. We have time for a few more questions. Okay, let me see. What do you, I know you've talked about this a little bit, but what do you hope that the viewers will take away when they see your work?
I'm not one to provide strong political statements in my artwork. I come from a place of peace, serenity, non-conflict, And so my artwork tends to represent that. I want everybody to get along. I want this world to be a place of peace and gentleness, and so that's what my artwork represents.
Hmm. And what are you working on now? Are you continuing on in the same vein of repetition and pattern, or is your work changing or evolving, or are you working on a new project?
Actually, I've been working on a couple of projects, and they are pen and ink based, and I'm calling these ones on the ground. And it has to do with the top down view of what's on the ground as we're walking along, what's on these paths that we walk through the woods and on the sides of the paths. And I just love the shapes of leaves and flowers and blades of grass, and how they're all different and yet they all seem to live together, um, in the same space. And there's such diversity, and I think we could learn a lot from respecting the diversity of the plant life and applying it to our own peoples and situations. So that's my next body of work, and I'm working on the pen and ink versions first, and then I'll see where those branch out. And what I love about taking a common theme and playing with it over and over again is you never know what you'll end up with, and the end result, the last piece that you do, you never would have arrived at had you not taken that full journey. So
Well, that's exciting. You're and the exploration, also spending that time with those, the leaves and investigating. And again, I think that's part of your like it seems more meditative in that way as well and reflective.
yes, and a lot of the mediums that I use, for example, linocut, you spend hours and hours carving this piece of linoleum. That is so meditative. And while you're carving it, there's all this anticipation of what it's going to eventually look like once you finally finished carving it. And then you're inking the plate, and you're putting that piece of paper on, and you're running it through the press. And then you pull that piece of paper up and you go, oh my, look what I've done. So yeah, very meditative and very satisfying at the same time. Yes.
I did notice, as we talk about meditative, but your lines themselves are full of energy. Like they have a real energy to your lines, which I really appreciated.
Thank you. And the other thing I do is I play music. I have this soft background music that I play, and I find it just takes my controlling left brain and puts it to sleep. And all of a sudden, I'm just off in this world where time has no meaning, and I'm just creating, and it's a wonderful place to be in. It's the same kind of in the now space that the athletes find they're in when they're in competition and things like that. So yeah, it's very healing, I find, for myself, and very calming. So
During in this time, in this day and age, it's nice to have that safe space and that creative space to work.
yes, it is. I was saying to my husband that during COVID, I have not been bored for 5 minutes, whereas he's kind of wondering what to do next. I've read 10 books, and I just come up here, and I'm just in my own little rich inner world of creation. And obviously, I'm an introvert, right? But
I think a lot of artists are.
a lot of artists are. So yeah, it's been wonderful. And then I personally am challenged with driving. I'm not able to multitask. I'm a single focus person. So the other thing that this last year has brought is the ability to do so much more online and connect with people through the arts. And that's been a challenge for me. My husband is my chauffeur and so such a support when it comes to helping me with my creative journey. getting my pieces out to exhibits and to put in stores to sell and things like that. So yeah, it's a team effort here, not just me.
Well, it's wonderful you have that support system as well. And
Yes.
um, that's really important. I think we're pretty much at time. I'm wondering, is there anything else that you would like to mention about your show before we wrap it up?
I'd just like to say that Manitoba Art Network, MAWA, and Creative Manitoba have been amazing support for artists. And I know Manitoba Art Network has a series of programs on right now, and so do MAWA. And I'm just recommending that people check out their websites and take advantage of some of this programming that they've created with amazing Manitoba artists. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. Yes. And your work is at manitobaartsnetwork.ca in their art gallery page.
Yes, you go to artgallery.manitobaartsnetwork.ca.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for talking to me about your work, and hopefully I can see it in person soon somewhere in the province.
Thank you so much, Dana. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, take care.
You too. Bye bye.